Hello, everybody. This is Every Day is Friday Podcast 365. I'm your host, Matty B43. I'm here with a special guest, Lauren LoGrasso, and she is a Webby Award-winning singer-songwriter, podcast host. Lauren.
Hey, Matthew, my cousin. We're cousins, everybody. You should know. I'm going to bury the lead right now. I think we're third cousins. Is that how it works?
It is.
Well, it's great to be here with you. I'm really proud of you that you started this podcast.
No, I'm actually a big fan of yours. You're actually one of the people that actually inspired me to do this podcast.
Aw, that makes me so happy. I'm really, really excited that you're unleashing your inner creative. You're taking it so seriously. You're in it to win it. You just told me you're in it for the long haul. You're in it for decades because that's what it takes. And if you have that mentality, you will get there.
I loved how you just called out your own podcast there. Can you say it again for them?
It's called Unleash Your Inner Creative with Lauren LoGrasso.
Yeah, can you, so you are Webby Award-winning. How do you feel winning the Webby Award on your podcast?
So I had wanted to win a Webby Award pretty much since I learned what they were 5 years ago when I first started my show, and I had applied to it a bunch of times. Like the first couple of years, I didn't even get nominated. The third year, I became an honoree, which was like they basically give some people honorees, but you're still not nominated. The fourth year, I was nominated, and I was like, that in and of itself felt like such a win to me. But then the most beautiful thing happened, which is that I went out to my community, and I was nominated in a group of much bigger shows and companies than mine was. My show is run by me and one other person. So it's a team of two. These other people have dozens of people on their teams, hundreds of thousands of followers. And so I was really, really scrappy. But the beautiful thing in it and the best part of winning the Webby was how much my community, my family, my friends showed up for me, my fans. And I was able to not only win the Webby Award for the judges one, the one that the judges judged on, but also the People's Choice competition, which is the popular vote. And that is truly a testament to the beautiful people in my life and in my sphere. And I feel like so grateful for that because I think most people have to wait until they get sick or something bad happens to find out how much people love them. And I really recommend telling somebody your dream because it gives people an opportunity to show you how much they love you for something good instead of something hard. So that was what it felt like to me. It felt like, wow, I had no idea how loved I was and how much support I have in my life and how much people really want to see you succeed and be part of creating your dream.
I was one of those people that voted for you, by the way.
Oh, thank you, Matthew. I so appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. It's my pleasure, actually. What do you think actually set your podcast apart from others?
Well, I think that it's a unique take on creativity. It looks at creativity through the lens of self-development and healing. So instead of just being like, here's 10 tips to make you more creative, we're really looking at what stops people from going out and pursuing what's on their heart. We're getting underneath the hood. We're trying to give people tools to love, trust, and know themselves, and also to reduce fear's influence in their life. We're always going to probably have fear. It's part of being a human, but making sure that your fear isn't making choices for you, that you, the wise adult, your higher self, you're sitting in the driver's seat of your life. And so I think from that perspective, we bring on a really diverse group of people, a lot of thought leaders, entrepreneurs, musicians, artists, all different kinds of creatives. And I think it just gives a very different take on creativity than most other shows out there.
That's amazing. How do you think the Webby Award impact your podcast career?
I think it really legitimized me. I mean, so I was there with a lot of big companies. So it was like NBC, PBS, MSNBC. My dad was losing his mind because all of his favorite newscasters were there. Because I took my parents with me and my boyfriend to the Webbies. But it was all these huge companies. So it was like NBC, PBS, MSNBC, Lauren LoGrasso Productions. So I think it really legitimized my show and put me in the echelon of these huge companies. And it also definitely increased downloads.
Nice. What was some of the biggest challenges you faced on your journey on winning the Webby Award?
The biggest challenge I faced was asking for help. I had a belief in me that I should be able to figure everything out by myself. I should never ask anybody for anything. And if I do ask people for something, they probably don't actually want to give it to me, because it's sad that I had that point of view, because it's really been only a few people that I've known throughout my career journey who have made me feel that way. But their influence and their the way they traumatized me was so strong that I really, really had that belief. So I had this coach, this amazing coach. Her name is Stacy Packer. Highly recommend anybody who gets the opportunity, go work with Stacy. She is amazing. And she said to me, Lauren, you're not asking for that much. You always show up for other people. It takes literally 2 minutes to vote. You need to go after this, because if you go after it with all your heart and you still don't win, you can leave knowing that you left everything on the table and that you still said yes to yourself. But if you say no to yourself and you don't go after it and you don't ask people for help, you're going to regret it. So that was an incredibly difficult hurdle for me to overcome, because to that point, I hadn't been as vocal about specific things I want. And it really paid off, because I ended up winning not only the Webby by the judges, but the popular vote, because I was able to overcome that fear and step into my self-worth in that way. So for sure, asking for help, asking for people to vote. I had so much compassion for politicians during that time, because I was like, this is hard. It's hard. It's vulnerable. You feel kind of like, oh, please just vote for me, you know. So anyway, that was very difficult, but also it turned out to be the best thing, because it showed me how many amazing people I have in my corner.
Can I ask you, what inspired you to start your podcast?
So Matthew, I don't know if you know this, but from the time I was little, I wanted to be a talk show host. So when I was probably like 7 or 8, we didn't have camera phones back then. How old are you, by the way? Are you 20?
I'm 26.
26. Okay. So you probably remember this time a little bit before we had camera phones. So we had the camcorders, and I would like always ask my mom and dad, tape me and my friends doing this fake talk show. So from the time I was little, I really like had this idea that being a talk show host would be cool. In high school, I was obsessed with Oprah, idolized her, wanted to be a host like she is. And then I went to college. I did radio there, and I just grew like to really love expressing myself in that way. And so I always thought in my mind, like, because at first when I moved here, I was pursuing acting. I was like, I think I'm going to go into radio someday, but I'm going to get to that. Let me try this acting thing first. Let's see what happens. And it just kept calling me, and it kept coming into my life in these strange ways, these opportunities, till I got the opportunity to start hosting at AfterBuzz TV. And that's really what started my career in hosting, podcasting, and radio.
How has your journey evolved since your first episode?
Oh my gosh, my journey has evolved. I think I'm way more myself now than I used to be. Like I used to try to be like a host, and I still like, prepare and everything. But I used to get on and be like, hello, and welcome to Unleash Your Inner Creative. I'm Lauren LoGrasso. It was like putting on a voice versus just being myself. I listen back to those early episodes, and on one hand, I cringe because I'm like, wow, I really hear how much less I knew myself back then. And I also feel proud because I'm like, first of all, I'm proud of that girl for stepping out and trying. Second of all, I'm so proud of how far I've gotten with how much more authentic I am, how much more myself I am now, how much more grounded I am. So I really, I think so much has changed since then, but yeah, I think I've grown tremendously in knowing who I am, accepting who I am, and really standing in that powerfully.
What do you think is like the biggest key for building like a engaging like fan base audience you have?
I think there's two things. So for podcasting in general, the thing that keeps people coming back week after week is if they like the host and they like the topics and they feel like they can count on both of those things. So I think it's really, really important to work on yourself, go to therapy, always be questioning, like, how can I be more myself? Like, what is holding me back? Who do I feel like I can be myself around, and who do I not feel like I can be myself around? What activities in my life make me feel like me? Like, always be trying to get to know who you are, because then it's going to be much easier to express that to the people that are listening to you. And then the other thing I said was relying on the topic. So when I coach people with podcasting, I have them figure out a podcast thesis statement, which is one statement, like, in high school when you'd write an essay and you had to have a thesis statement at the end of the first paragraph. So this thesis statement for your podcast is one sentence that every single idea on the podcast runs through. It's the promise to the audience. So mine is, this show is meant to give you tools to love, trust, and know yourself enough to claim your right to creativity and pursue whatever it is that's on your heart. So every single episode, I have to make sure that the guests, the questions, everything I say runs through that thesis statement, so I make good on the promise that I make to the audience every single week. Part of making good on the promise to the audience is also showing up on time at the same time every week on the same day. And so all of those things together, bringing who you really are, working on who you really are, consistency, and also having a point of view and like keeping a promise to the audience. And then the other thing I would definitely say is speak like you're speaking to one person. So when you're on a podcast or when you're listening to a podcast, that you're literally in someone's ears. It doesn't get much more intimate than that. So rather than saying you guys, you all, everybody, speaking to one person. So whenever I'm talking to the person listening, I say, and for you listening, I just want you to know that this is what I'm thinking about and this is how you can implement it into your life. That's so much more powerful than saying like, all you listeners, this is how all of you can go ahead and implement this into your life. Because on the one hand, you're like speaking to a crowd. On the other hand, you're speaking to one individual and really building a relationship between the two of you, which is what podcasting is.
Oh, that's remarkable. Thanks for sharing that insight information.
Of
For anyone that
course.
wants to, I'm gonna put you in the description for anyone that wants to look you up. Do you do actually like coaching on podcasting?
I do. I do podcast coaching and I do creative coaching. So that's really what I'm stepping into. I've been doing a lot of public speaking and creative coaching, helping people figure out the things that we talk about on the podcast. So what your creative thesis statement is, what's standing between you and what you want, how to love, trust, and know yourself better. And then once you know the answers to all those things, how to take those ideas and passions you have and put them into action to make something out in the world. So that's what I do. And then I do the same thing with podcasting. If you want to get more specific, if you already feel like you know your creative thesis statement and your other passions, I can help you find out what your podcast topic is and do everything from A to Z on how to get it out into the world or optimize it if you already have one.
That's great. I mean, if anyone wants to look that up, it'll be in the description down below. I mean, I'll put your Instagram up there too. And I mean, how do you balance your podcasting career and your singing career and everything else about life?
Well, it's a constant struggle, to be honest with you. You always have to be figuring out what kind of is in the top position right now. And that can be a day-to-day thing. That can be a month-to-month thing. That can be a year-to-year thing. Right now, music is taking a higher priority for me because I'm putting out a song on October 11th, my cover of Genie in a Bottle. So everybody go pre-save that at the link in my bio at Lauren LoGrasso. But, it kind of depends on what your priority is season to season. The podcast comes out every single week. So at some point during the week, the podcast is my top priority. Usually on Mondays and Tuesdays is when I'm doing post-production. And on Thursdays and Fridays, I'm usually recording. So that's when I, focus on those things. And then with my music, it's like any other time right now. And then, I kind of just go with whatever is at the forefront of my life. I make a conscious decision about what part of my creativity is taking precedence on any given day or in any given time period. And I make sure, like, it's kind of the same thing. I look at creativity like, having a baby. If you have an infant and you have a 5-year-old, they're going to require a different level of care. So, just thinking about your creativity almost as if they're children. Like right now, my song isn't even an infant yet. It's still in utero. So I have to give it the care that requires in order for it to be birthed into the world. And so because my podcast is a kindergartner, it's not that it doesn't require care, it requires care, but like I kind of know what I have to do with that. And so I'm putting in the effort I need to in order for it to continue to grow and thrive. However, the focus right now is a little bit more on my music.
Okay. So, I mean, what advice would you give to someone looking to start their own podcast from the beginning?
Well, first of all, make sure you listen to podcasts because a lot of people start podcasts without being fans of them. And I think the most important thing you can do is build your taste, know what you like, know what you don't like, and then do your own unique thing that fills a hole in the market. So ask yourself what it is. This is what I do when I coach somebody. Ask yourself, what is your greatest pain and what is your greatest joy? Usually the topic you're meant to speak on is somewhere in between those two things. Then look into the marketplace, go on all the podcast apps, search, and look for what is something that like you could do that is not currently out there. It doesn't mean you have to reinvent the wheel. By the way, there's like probably hundreds of creativity shows, at least dozens. So you just have to do it differently than anybody else is doing it. You have to have a unique perspective and a point of view. And then from there, I usually recommend anywhere between 3 and 4 months pre-production work. Do not launch with less than 4 episodes ready to go, because otherwise it is such a grind. You're going to be living hand to mouth and you're going to be really, really sad. So, and if you have the funds, I would definitely recommend hiring a podcast coach like me, or if you can hire a podcast producer, usually that's a little bit more expensive, but you can go ahead and do that. But having some sort of accountability partner and somebody who knows the industry is going to help you grow faster and be more successful.
Yeah, like I said before, in the description, I'm gonna put your Instagram, and please hit her up. I mean, she'll coach you right through it. And you gave me some tips right before this podcast. I do appreciate them.
Of course.
And, yes. I'm also a songwriter and a creator of music. I'm Maddie B43 if you want to look me up.
I do.
I know I do country rock music, and I want to dive deeper into it, and I'm falling in love with it. How do you approach songwriting or creating music?
Well, it depends. If I'm writing by myself, it's kind of like whatever comes out of me. It's usually in a highly emotional time, or a lot of times when I'm sleeping, I like start writing songs in my sleep. That's how I figured out I was a songwriter. I was writing songs as I was falling asleep, and at the time I recorded them into my BlackBerry, which shows you how long ago that was now. But yeah, like I think it's either when I'm in a flow state or when I'm deeply emotional. If I'm in a state where I'm trying specifically to write songs, I do something called the morning pages. Have you ever heard of those, Matthew?
No.
Okay, so for those that don't know, the morning pages are 3 pages of free writing that you do every single morning just to get the junk out of your head. It's like to get the anxiety, all the swirling thoughts. And then what starts to happen when you do it more consistently is creative ideas start to come too. And so if I'm really in a state where I know I need to be creatively bringing it, whether it's with my music, writing a keynote speech, or doing coaching or my podcast, I make sure that I'm doing the morning pages consistently because it kind of clears the deck and it takes away all the baggage so that creativity is more easily able to flow. So I do that. And then a lot of times, especially if I'm like, I like this song, but it's not quite where it wants to be, I have a couple co-writers that I work with. So one of my best friends, Liz, and I write together a lot. We've been working on children's music together, which has been super fun. And so we'll get together and edit the song together or maybe start a new song from scratch. But it just depends on what state I'm in, what the purpose is of the song. And sometimes I finish it by myself in like 10 minutes and that's that. And sometimes it takes months and I have to go at it and edit it with someone else. So it really just depends.
No, my last song, Halo, you can look it up on any platform out there. I wrote that song within 48 hours and produced it. I was in a different state of mind, a little bit like you were saying, and it just came out of me. And some of those moments are the special moments in life that you never forget.
Absolutely. I can't wait to listen to Halo. Shout
Halo,
out to Maddie B43.
That's
Why
right.
43?
That's right. B43, I was a nickname back in high school, and it was Maddie B43. It's a little nickname thing, and a B43 is also a nuclear bomb. I know
no.
people don't. I know some people don't like that, and some people are like, oh, I just say I'm coming in hot, type. So it is what it is. Who's like your biggest influence in music?
Well, Billy Joel was the first person I really listened to that captured my heart. I remember when I was in high school, which it wasn't like he was like super popular with kids my age back then. I just fell back in love with his music. I liked it when I was a kid, and I would just pore over his lyrics and just got obsessed with them. And he was really the first musician that made me feel not alone and like, wow, somebody out there understands me. So that was the first inkling of like, I mean, I thought if I could do that someday, it would be so amazing. But I didn't even know I could write music back then. And then I would also say Fiona Apple, Ani DeFranco, Sarah Bareilles, Tegan and Sarah. I have like dear friends, my friend Liz Full, who I told you about, and my friend Lauren Tannenbaum. They're two of my favorite artists. So all of those people together, a lot of female singer-songwriters and Billy Joel. And then of course like the 90s and early 2000s pop music that raised me. So like all of the Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys. I am, even though it doesn't really sound like it comes out in my music, I'm deeply influenced by that. And here's an interesting thing because we're Italian. I don't know if you know this, but I met my dad's side of the family in Sicily. So we have like, my dad has first cousins there. So really close relations. And I found out from one of my cousins that my style, my guitar playing style, reflects Italian bel canto music, which is so interesting because it's not ever something I've listened to, but it does make you think, like, I wonder if genetics are involved in like how we end up creatively expressing ourselves. Because how else would I have picked up on that? Like, I haven't heard it anywhere. So that's interesting too.
That is very interesting. I play guitar also, and I'm trying to lean more into it. Learning as much as I can, as fast as I can, as much time as I have to do it and play it. You have to pick it
Right.
up every day. That's
Yeah,
what I
you
say.
do. I've been slacking on it lately. So maybe after this, I'll get back to it.
Same here, same here. What advice would you give someone starting off in songwriting and just basically just in the music industry?
Run. No, I'm kidding. With songwriting, I'd say it's the greatest gift you'll ever have. I mean, really, the art of music is the greatest gift I have. Singing is the greatest gift I have. It is my favorite way to express myself. I feel honored to be a songwriter. And I would say to anyone listening, if you've never written a song, try. Nobody owns songwriting. Just because you haven't written a song before doesn't mean you aren't a songwriter. I didn't know I was a songwriter till I was 23. And while that's not that old, that's a pretty long time to not know you can do it. When I look back on it, I had been writing songs my whole life, but we didn't have any songwriters in our family, So I didn't even know that you could be that. Like, I didn't know it was a possibility. So for anyone listening who wants to be a songwriter or who is a songwriter, I would say own it, step into it, see it as the beautiful gift it is. As far as the music industry, that is a very different question. It's a challenging industry. It's very difficult to be seen in. And so you really have to do it for the love of it and keep trying and be in it for the long game. They make you believe you have to make it by a certain age, but I deeply believe that is not true. People who are in their late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, we all have something to say. And so don't let the limiting thoughts of the mainstream music industry make you think that you can't make it. Like, there's lots of different ways to make it as a musician. So I would just say constantly be evolving, constantly be asking, like, how else could I make it? Like, that's outside of this, like, one limiting view of, like, I get a major record deal. Like, could I do videos in this way? Could I get into children's music? Could I start doing a college tour? Could I sing at nursing homes? Like, there's so many different ways to be an artist that people don't talk about. But yeah, it's way more vast than you think. Like, one of my friends writes music for reality shows, and like, she's not a known artist, but like, that's something that she does, and she makes a really good living doing that. So there's lots of different ways to be a musician. Open your mind and your eyes to all the different ways it could be, and don't let anybody's limiting beliefs bring you down.
I always say lean into it and
Yeah.
lean into it and start singing in the shower, go to karaoke, fall in love with it, basically.
Yeah, you have to love it. That's the number one thing, because when it does get disappointing, because anything where you're having to put yourself out there constantly can be disappointing at times and can feel like dejecting. You have to remember how much you love it and let that be at the forefront rather than whatever the hardship is. So the love has to be the number one thing for you. And then when these disappointments come up, it's like, fine, I'm not going to let that impede my love for music.
With that being said, Lauren, can I ask you what has been the most rewarding moment so far in your career for music?
Rewarding. The
Yeah.
most rewarding moment, honestly, was when I played Hard Rock Cafe Detroit. So I did a show at the Hard Rock Cafe Detroit back in 2015, and I don't, is that still even open? I think it may have closed down, but it was on the stage. I had like between 100 and 200 people show up. We did the show to benefit a local Detroit charity that housed and fed single mothers. And it just was like, it felt so good. We were able to raise almost $1,500 for this charity. And I remember looking out and just seeing all the beautiful people in the audience. And I was just, it's one of the most present moments I've had in my entire life. I was just like, oh, like this is why I've been doing this for so long. And this is why I want to keep doing it. I just felt so connected to everyone there. And like it combined everything I loved. I got to help people. I got to sing. I got to communicate and talk with people because I loved talking in between singing. And I got to connect with people from where I'm from. So I would say that. And honestly, doing this children's music, when I was in college, because I studied theater and communication, but theater was like my main thing in college. I remember thinking like children's performers, I'm like, oh my God, I feel so bad for them. Their lives must suck. They must hate that. I have to tell you, writing and singing children's music is like one of my favorite things I've ever done in my entire life. It has been so healing to my inner child. It has been so beautiful to be able to write songs that would have helped me when I was a little kid and that I know will help like my little, cousins and, my friends' kids. And it's just been the most beautiful. And also kids don't care. Like they don't need you to be perfect. So it's helped me drop the charges on myself for my adult music having to be perfect. I know now that it's really about expressing yourself and connecting, and doing children's music has helped me realize that. And as far as like the highlight, I would say being in People magazine a couple times. I was very lucky to be in a couple times. I didn't ever think I'd get that kind of national exposure. So knowing that I had that, like no matter what happened for the rest of my music career, like People magazine thought I was good enough to be in there was just like a moment of accomplishment that I will always cherish, because it reminded me like I've been working so hard, and it sometimes felt thankless, but like this very legitimate national news brand recognized my talent, and it was very heartening. So I'd say those three things.
That's remarkable.
Thank you.
Lauren, do you have like a song or project that you're most proud of, and like what made it stand out for you?
Well, I'd say my favorite song that's out right now is Road to Glory, because it's about exactly what we're talking about, Matthew. It's about the long and winding road to becoming the person, artist, creative, entrepreneur, parent you want to be, whatever it is, fill in the blank. Like whatever your life's mission is, it's about the road to continue on that, even when it's really painful, even when you feel like you're getting door after door slammed in your face. And so I feel really proud of that, because I go back to that song all the time. It's also one of the first songs I ever wrote, and I feel like it really holds up. And I wrote most of it in Detroit, so that's also really special. Detroit is a huge creative hub for me. I always get like hit with a jolt of creativity whenever I go home. And then as far as songs I'm putting out, I have some really exciting songs in the pipeline. I'm doing this cover of Genie in a Bottle on October 11th. I'm proud of that because I'm coming back after not putting out a song for 3 years, which it's so hard to do, to come back to it and like to really like put my money where my mouth is. Like I talk about creativity every week. Am I going to actually unleash my inner creative? So doing that, and then I've got this whole trajectory of songs I'm going to be putting out. One's about confronting the personal shadow. One's about codependency and like family trauma and like rooting that out in yourself and healing up the bloodline. I've got songs about like being Italian that are coming out, and about our family and some of our family history that I'm trying to heal. And so it's pretty beautiful to like get to talk about all these deep topics that I'm working on in my personal life through music, and hoping it inspires other people to actually confront their deepest pains and joys and go toward themselves.
Keep chasing their dreams.
Yeah.
Well, Lauren, we're going to end the podcast right here, everybody. I appreciate it. And go chase your dreams, because your dreams will not chase you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
They might, though, but you should chase them anyway.
That's true. It's true.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.